is Hervé Kubgimana. I work with Merck, the German science and technology company. I run the accelerator program in Africa, which is part of our main innovation center, which is based in Germany. So at the Merck Innovation Center, we have 3 different components. The one that looks internally, the internal projects, and the one that looks into trend topics like blockchain, additive manufacturing. But we have also a component that looks into external innovations, which is the accelerator program. In Africa, we focus mainly on digital healthcare, where we support early stage startups that are into the digital healthcare sector. And to come to your question, what are the next innovations? What are innovations in Africa? We've seen quite a few really good startups that are into innovating the healthcare sector in Africa. Mainly, most of them are targeting the outcomes of diseases to go more on the prevention side than the treatment side. But also, we have seen some of the innovations, and this has been very interesting for us in terms of collaboration. Some of the startups are working into the value chain for drugs and medical supplies. One of the examples that we really like that we collaborated with is that one of our donations program, the anti-schistomasis donation program with the Praziquantel drugs, we've had quite some challenges in terms of the last mile of the drugs delivery. When the drugs go through Merck WHO program up to, let's say, in Kenya, where we piloted our program, and then no one knows where these medicines are. No one understands if they have been delivered to the kids in schools. And we were able to partner with an innovative startup that helped us in terms of tracking all the movements from where the WHO makes the order, where Merck manufactures, and then up to the time where the drug is administered to the kids in the schools. We piloted this in Kenya this year. And we were very happy about it, and actually next year we are launching the full program, not only in Kenya, but also in other countries. And this is very important, at least in the drug industry or in the pharmaceutical industry, because a value chain is still a challenge on the continent. And this also affects the prices of the medicine when you have a lot of middlemen. And by the time you get to it gets to the patient, it's really high price and makes it not sustainable anymore. So in a nutshell, we are looking into digital healthcare, and we've been very privileged to work with some really good co-founders that have interesting startups.
Yeah, and I think we have to admit that Merck just found a vaccine against Ebola, right? Were you concerned with that?
On Ebola, we are not very involved, but interestingly that you mentioned it, we've seen some of the teams in Sierra Leone and West Africa applying to the program about Ebola. Unfortunately, our business are not aligned, and we were not able to support that much.
Okay, maybe next time for the next disease, but we don't hope so. So there are more innovations also going on in the aerospace sector, and there we come to Ray. He's the leader at Airbus BizLab Hamburg. Tell us more what's going on, what you're doing, and what's going on in the aerospace sector concerning innovations.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I think we're a little bit among everyone in the room, the startups to this new topic, because we're just starting with the accelerator into it. So it's very exciting to see the examples of Microsoft and so on, actually how advanced it is and where it gives us also a vision of where we might be able to be. So thanks for having us here. What I will talk about in a few minutes has basically 2 aspects. One is more on the innovation that we are doing right now and how we are working right now, and the other part is looking into actually our ambition and where we want to go and what we have already launched now, and where we encourage all of you that have ideas, just come and talk to us, and maybe you can make our program even better. So at Airbus, we talk, in Germany, we talk about Industry 4.0, Industrial Revolution, Fourth Industrial Revolution. But at Airbus, we actually talk about the third revolution of aerospace. There was the time of the first man-made flight. It was actually the Wright brothers, some of you might know it. After that, we had the jet engines. The first jet engine aircraft was a German one that flew. And since then, actually, aircrafts have really taken off. But it has not, the principal construct of the aircraft hasn't changed that much. But we see two technology drivers that make us think differently. And one is the speed of innovation. So industries that are having much, much faster innovation cycles pushing into our industry. And on the other hand, the barriers of entry. Some of you might know SpaceX and so on. So as Tesla is disrupting automotive, we see SpaceX also as disrupting aerospace. So the answer from Airbus side on it is creating an innovation ecosystem where on the one hand, we want to disrupt ourselves before anyone else does. Some of you might heard about urban air mobility, so like in plain terms, the flying vehicle or the flying taxi. That's a little bit far off, okay? So we also have other programs, especially Airbus Ventures and also the BizLab, where we are engaging with the startup world on the one hand, but also bringing the innovation that we have inside in connection with the outside world. Airbus Ventures, Corporate Venture Capital Fund. If you want to know more about that, you can also talk to me. Airbus BizLab, this is why I'm here, why I'm mainly invited. It's an acceleration program. It's a 6-month program run by corporate. At the moment, we have 3 locations, Hamburg, Toulouse, and Bangalore. And this is where it's the 3rd batch that we are opening now. In the past, we have worked with 29 startups and 27 internal projects, and it's going quite well. And this is a personal topic actually for me, and what I try to push even more and more in the company and why I come to conferences like this is what is our responsibility and also our contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals. And there we have, at the moment we work on 2 main axes on that. So on the one hand, we are collaborating with the foundation and with the humanitarian community, so with the International Red Cross, with the UN World Food Programme, and we look in our current batch that we integrate, and we have the pitch session next week actually, is we selected 10 startups that have a technical concept to humanitarian challenge. And those are technical concepts where we think as Airbus we can add maybe a value because they need something from us in terms of technology. So this is the one axis how we start going into a new, let's say, new path also with the accelerator. And the other element is our Africa for Future initiative. So on this one, we start exploring, like as I said, we're really at the beginning, but we have done with a local partner in Cape Town and in Nairobi. We have now throughout August, we have looked for startups that are somehow in our field, because for the time being, we do not really know yet what kind of startups are working in drone sector and satellite imagery, 3D printing. Those topics have been mentioned also before. But there again, can be our role and how can we bring value to that? So the call is running right now. Teams can still apply. If you know anybody that wants to work with us, tell them to apply for the program or come to me or my colleague Guido, who's also in the audience, and talk to us. And the winners of those challenges, we invite them for 10 days to Europe. So also if you're an impact investor or you think that a startup that's working with us has maybe a good value and you want to work with them as well, also come and talk to us. That's my promotional part. All right.
You're allowed,
okay,
no problem.
but I think that's okay for now.
Okay. There's also something that combines you a bit, the healthcare sector and the aerospace sector, the drones that are delivering blood in Rwanda, right? I think they are spreading all over Africa now because it's something very good. And okay, we come to the next sector. Africa needs electricity, so there's the energy sector, which is quite important. And we have 2 specialists here. One is Suleiman. Maybe you can start, Suleiman. Natalie, sorry for switching you. Okay, Suleiman, you are the CEO at SMA Sunbelt Energy. Tell us more about it and what are you doing exactly?
Okay, thank you very much. SMA Sunbelt Energy is a daughter of the SMA Solar Technology AG. It is a TechDex listed company, leaders in manufacturing of inverters for PV system, for solar-based PV system. At Sunbelt, we are covering the Sunbelt region, where the sun is shining most of the time, South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. We design, develop, and construct turnkey solutions to power industries and communities around the Sunbelt region. Currently, it's not an innovation. It is a 40 years old innovation, because our founders started with the idea to create decentralized energy systems. And the thing is that this idea is still valid, and it is pushed and accelerated by two things. First, it is the decrease in storage cost. That will be also pushed forward by the need for storage for electromobility and so on. To give you a number, as I started in 2006 at SMA, the price for 1 watt peak was above €4. Today you can buy a module with 1 watt at 30 euro cent. So you can see really a decrease, and this price will continue to decrease. And to combine it with the decrease in storage, that means you might end up with the possibility of electrifying a village at lower cost. And that is the game-changing effect, not only to electrify this village, but to allow productive use of energy, of electricity, of solar. And that will create jobs, that will create productivity and boost the impact, the local impact. So, cost of storage and the connection between electricity and internet. These are the drivers that will move us forwards and reach more people in the Sunbelt region. I'll end with something very important in terms of innovation. The key is how to connect with the local people, with local creators, innovators in Africa. How to find the right partner there, how to select them, and how to involve them in your innovation process. That is key, and that will be also key in the future.
It's what the Africa Fine is for, to find the right partner.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that I read that your wish to electrify Africa raised very early, at a very young age, right?
Pardon?
I read that your wish to electrify Africa, you had at a very young age, right?
Yes, of course. Because I'm Senegalese born, and in my village, my town, I went to school and with the petroleum lamp. And that was from there on the idea on how to get access to electricity. And that is the reason why I joined SMA earlier. And that is something that is driving me, and my position as CEO of Sunbelt is just to go to countries in Africa or in Asia, and to help create decentralized, interconnected energy systems. And we have succeeded it, and we are successful in East Africa, and in Ghana, in Botswana, and so on. And the results are really outstanding. I'm very satisfied.
I think you alone will not be able to electrify the whole Africa, but maybe all together we can do something. Together with Ethan, for example, because he's also in the...
They said that we could use slides.
You are allowed.
And I think I'm the only one who actually bothered doing it. But is that okay with everybody? I promise they won't be boring.
No problem.
Okay?
We are ready.
Hi, I'm Eitan from Lumos Global, and I want to start with two maps from 2005. On the left is countries in Africa with more than 50% access to phones, and on the right, more than 50% access to electricity. And if we fast forward to 2016, this is what happens. This isn't that surprising to all of us. We know that phone penetration exploded all over Africa, but nothing changed with electricity. And we know the reason why. Phones went mobile. They went off the poles, they went direct to consumer, and they went mobile. Electricity is still stuck on poles, but we're starting to see the beginning of going mobile, and we think that Lumos is a leader in the field of mobile solar electricity. But what do these maps mean in reality? It's that there's 1.5 billion people on Earth without access to the grid, but they still need electricity. You need electricity to operate in the world, and so they're spending $45 billion on low-quality electricity. So that's 300 million households spending $150 a year on diesel generators, kerosene lanterns, or paying to charge their cell phones in marketplaces, paying roughly 50 times what you would pay for electricity right here in Berlin on a per kilowatt hour basis. So they're paying more, they're getting less, and they're tired of it, and that's what Lumos is solving. The topic of this panel is how can you be innovative, affordable, and sustainable? And at Lumos, we think that you have to start with affordable. You have to start with where the customer is, and so you need a product that people are going to want, that's going to make their lives better, but is also going to save them money. And so the Lumos mission is to bring accessible, affordable, and reliable clean electricity to the 1.5 billion people living off-grid. And so how do we do that? Starting with the customer, and you start with affordability. Affordability leads to sustainability, which leads to innovation. And what do I mean by that is that sustainability is inherently affordable. You are using fewer resources. The question is just over what time frame. Solar electricity makes electricity for free once it's installed. It's just expensive up front. Our systems would cost our customer about $650 to buy on the market. They can't afford that. And so that's where innovation comes into play. If you can innovate, you can make the affordability that sustainability creates accessible to your customers. And at Lumos, we've innovated in 3 ways. Our business model is pay-as-you-go business model. So customers can't afford the $650 up front, but they can afford 50 cents a day for electricity. 1 day of Lumos electricity is the same cost as 2 hours of a generator. And so when you tell that to customers, the math becomes very clear. So we let people buy prepaid electricity packages, 3 days, 10 days, 30 days. The second is our technology. You know, if you want people to pay as they go, you need a product that people want and a product that can work with the business model. People mentioned M-Copa earlier today. Our system is 10 times the size of M-Copa's, and so it's not just giving a little bit of light and mobile charging. It's enough for a bunch of lights and a fan and a television and a laptop. And the other thing you need is you need security. You need to make sure that the system only works when people pay. That's how you protect the business model and you make your customer secure. And finally, we innovated with go-to-market because unless you're operating in East Africa, and really Kenya and Tanzania, there's no good way for customers to pay you as they go remotely. There isn't really deep mobile money penetration in Central and West Africa. Our customers don't have credit cards, they don't have bank accounts, and so we partner with mobile operators. We partnered in Nigeria with MTN, the biggest mobile operator, and people can pay us using their airtime accounts, their top-ups. So the same way that they buy minutes for the phone, they can buy electricity in their home. Just simple SMS, they text 3, they text 10, they text 30, and all of a sudden the lights go on in their home. And so the innovation in those 3 ways. The other partnership with MTN is that we sell in their stores. We would never be able, you know, it would take us a while to build MTN store network. By selling in MTN stores, we can quickly scale. We've installed over 40,000 systems in Nigeria with an expected revenue over the next 5 years of about $30 million. I should say that customers pay for 5 years, but then after that, the electricity is free to use. We secured a $50 million debt facility with OPIC. The U.S. Development Bank has been a great partner for us. It's part of the challenge of the business model is that you have to finance the systems up front and then get paid back over time. OPIC finances a percentage of every system we install in Nigeria. And finally, we're expanding into new territories. We just last month opened our first store in Côte d'Ivoire. We're going to roll out over the rest of the year, and then nationwide at the beginning of next year, and our next territories are in pilot stage. Thank you very much. This is our map of deployments across Nigeria, the biggest off-grid economy in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Natalie, coming to you now. You are the regional manager for East Africa at NPACT. What is NPACT exactly doing, and what do you know about innovation?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting us. So indeed, NPACT, we are a non-profit organization. We are based in Berlin, and we are all about empowering entrepreneurs, helping them to develop their startup, and helping them to shape sustainable societies in different regions of the world. So we have 4 different pillars, 4 main activities. One of them is a mentoring, startup mentoring. It's about international mentoring programs, bringing together entrepreneurs from Europe and entrepreneurs from Africa. There is a vertical component of it, so every entrepreneur is matched with an experienced mentor. Then they get monthly individual mentoring session during 8 months. And on top of that, we have highlights such as startup camps happening, one in Berlin and one in the different regions we have. So we are currently working with 3 different regions: MENA, Middle East and North Africa, West Africa, and East Africa. So the second camp is going to happen, one in Tunis, one in Nairobi, and one in Accra. Second pillar of NPACT is Connect, Startup Connect. We are organizing delegation trips for startups, for SMEs, for investors to different cities to explore opportunities and explore new markets. Third one is Startup Meter. Meter, it's all about measuring startup ecosystems at a city level through about 100 of indicators, and they'll be the startup friendliness index. And the fourth one is a space, startup space. We have a co-working space currently running in Tunis, and we're going to have a new one in Cairo very soon. So to go back to the innovation topic and to the mentoring program, because I work specifically for the mentoring programs, there's a book called Where Do Good Ideas Come From? And there's also a TED Talk about it. And Stephen Johnson is talking about liquid networks. And he's talking about what's the process of coming up with a good idea? And what he says is a good idea is never a single point. It's never a single thing. It's a connection. It's a network. A good idea is a network. And that's exactly what we are doing at NPACT. We are providing the framework. We are providing this liquid network when people can come and interact with each other and have these connections in their brain in order to develop their ideas, to innovate in their business models, or to go forward with their business.
That's it. So as you are concerned with the analysis of the startup friendliness of the cities, so how startup friendly is Nairobi?
Very interesting question. So there's a lot happening in Nairobi. Yeah. I lived there myself 2 years ago. There's a lot happening in terms of accelerators, spaces, entrepreneurs. It's really thriving. Then I think we are in the process of analyzing the data. It's kind of a new meter, it's kind of a new project. And then I think what would be important to develop is a community aspect. It's a sharing ideas, interacting with each other. For example, what we are doing at NPACT is connecting entrepreneurs with people who can help them, like experienced entrepreneurs, but what is important is also peer learning, peer sharing. And that does not happen a lot right now, and that's what could be developed.
Okay, as you are the regional manager for East Africa, tell me the difference between Nairobi, Kampala, and Dar es Salaam. Concerning startup friendliness.
So far, our focus country this year is Kenya. So I will answer maybe later when we are going to Tanzania and Kampala.
Okay.
Because so far, we've been working for 4 years with the Middle East and North Africa, and we have 2 new regions this year, West Africa and East Africa. So when it comes to East Africa, our focus country is Kenya. We have entrepreneurs from Uganda, Ethiopia, and Rwanda. But still, we have the majority is coming from Kenya, so have more knowledge of Kenya. Okay. And hopefully, if things go well, and if we have also good relationship with our donors and more programs in the next few years, we can compare what's happening in Dar es Salaam and Kigali.
Okay.
Nairobi.
We wait for that. Okay, Kai is left. Kai is professor at the Center for Business and Technology in Africa, which is part of University of Flensburg. And you are in the research, and can you give us an overview? Which are the innovative technologies that had the biggest impact in Africa over the last years? I think we heard it already, but can you sum up?
Thank you first for being here on the panel. And well, it's a good question. You know, I think about when we talked here about electricity, about a very old sentence, and I hope I don't shock anyone who is here as entrepreneur. That was Lenin, who said, what is Soviet power? It's Russia plus electrification. It means about thinking about innovation. You need electricity to build up something modern. One factories is one thing, extending working time is another thing, education is another thing what is quite important. So it's also always the link, if you're an entrepreneur, how to think, how can I do something what might be also good for the government, even I have my business. So one thing is surely driven by all ideas about electricity and empowering the people. Even in some countries, there are some legal problems about what are doing about off-grid solutions. Well, second thing maybe, when you look about the research and innovative, we have talked a lot about M-Pesa and about payment methods. Well, I have a strong background in the German payment system, cooperative banks, and I tell you, every German CEO of a bank, he would like to do the business in Africa. If you pay so much per transaction, no bank here in Europe can earn so much money by a simple transaction. So at least a monopoly like M-Pesa is a little bit overpriced if you have such a strong thing. On the other hand, if you're 200 kilometers away from an ATM, so what will you do? You have to accept it. It's one reason why they are so successful. If you want now to be innovative, you must think about how can I reach people who are able to use a mobile phone, but maybe who cannot really read, write, they are illiterate. So why don't we use things and get the next stage about speech-driven transactions? Just talking. Language is normally something everyone, at least in remote areas, even with less schooling, can do. And that is a potential market. I think in Nigeria, what was mentioned is 30% are not able to write and read really like we understand writing and reading. So also that could be an impact. So we must always reinvent ourselves new to the needs of the people and to empower more and more people to do any kind of business, have access to things, basic things like transaction, money, payments, as well as electricity.
Okay. Let's come to affordability. We all know that there is a middle class in most of the African countries, but we also know that a great number of Africans, especially those living in the rural areas, still live with less than $1 per day. Can these people afford electricity? If yes, how? You explained it a bit, but please, this question again. Suleiman. Can everybody in Africa afford electricity right now?
The answer is no, unfortunately. But there is no choice to be not to be electrified. So therefore, the great chance is really how to accelerate the diffusion of decentralized systems, to accelerate the decrease of storage cost, and then the level of the entry level for a small system will be so low that the diffusion will be very faster. But unfortunately, the answer is today no.
Ethan, please.
Yeah, so I strongly disagree.
That's good.
I mean, I think it's a question of, can everybody in Africa afford to have the level of electricity that is electrifying this building right now, or in a home in Berlin? The answer is no. But can you significantly help people move up the curve right now, and can they afford it? The answer is absolutely yes. Our systems cost 50 cents a day. There are some that are smaller than ours that are even less. And so, with the right innovation around business models and payments, I mean, it's happening right now. The issue is not technology, although certainly solar and batteries getting cheaper helps and makes our business, possible and improving. But the issue is financing. It's the issue of getting international banks and African banks to have confidence that this is a worthwhile investment, that electrification of people's homes is something that is a financeable asset, that if you, the same way that, utilities in Europe or in the US have very low interest rates, well, we should be viewing it the same way. These are people who, they don't want to lose the lights either, and once you give them light, they're excited about it. And so I think it is possible now. I think it's not a technology issue. I think it's a finance issue, and that's why I go to work every day.
Okay, but please short. We are running out of time.
Very short, because the point is here, if we talk about electricity, I'm not talking about light. Because if having access to light in Africa, it is just enlighten the poverty of the people. So the right access to electricity is how to accelerate the productive use of electricity. How to, if you talk about healthcare, you need a bigger system, yeah, to have a sustainable healthcare system, to have a sustainable education system. And yes, you can have access to a lamp or 2 lamps or to power to your radio and something. It's not the case for me. When I'm talking about electricity, I'm talking about the productive use of electricity. I hope just we continue the discussion.
It's okay between the two of you. It's Kai now, please.
well, let's just add maybe. The thing is, if you have a longer time daylight, the productivity will go up. For sure, even if it's only for learning, for teaching, for time, what you are not doing throughout the day. The second thing is, maybe we have learned also about international use of payment systems. So why do not use the power of Africans who are abroad, who can also get a little bit finance back electricity which is used in decentralized towns?
Thanks. Natalie, let's go on with sustainability. And I want to ask you, how do you incorporate sustainability into a business?
Do we have enough time for this?
Just try a short answer, please.
I think there are different ways to integrate sustainability. You can see it as a goal, like for example, when you have companies working for energy or for agriculture, but you can also incorporate sustainability in every company and see it more as a filter and more as a grid of questions you need to ask yourself in order to be more sustainable. But then I'm always shared when I have this question about sustainability, because when we work with business and entrepreneurship, there is like 2 aspects. There is a financial sustainability, and is the business going to last? And there is a sustainability understood as a contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals. And there are 2 different things. For both of them we need innovation, but sometimes we need to know more about which sustainability are we talking about. Yeah.
Ray, what do you think? Why is sustainability so important?
If I pick up the topic that Natalie put forward, I think the second one you mentioned was sustainability contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals, because without them we won't last as a human species. So I mean that's almost like a self-serving purpose. We need to achieve them, and everyone that is part of our society needs to support in achieving them in order for us to survive. So that's, I think, the one basic element. And the first one you said was sustainability in the products and the sustainability of the operation itself. So that one, from our perspective, from the Airbus perspective, I think it's interesting when you look at us and how, like, where innovation comes from us driven. It is a little bit different when, for example, Axel Springer, in terms of the business model, they are at the end of their life cycle. Whereas on our side, we're almost, sorry to be a little bit radical, that was a little bit too radical, but that's a big driver for them. Whereas for us, when we look into when we look in our business right now, like say, for example, commercial aircrafts, there's always the order books are full for the next 10 years. It's growing everywhere, and Africa is, I mean, at the moment 2% of the market, but it will be also exploding at one point and so on. So we ask ourselves the question coming more from a different way, where we are attacked from the outside, where we see, I think at the moment you have 5 or 6 self-financed teams that work on an urban air mobility thing. This is, when we talk about sustainability from our perspective, what we are looking into.
Kai, you raised the topic education, and maybe you should tell us something about the Train the Trainer program.
Well, we are currently in a so-called PISA project, which is financed by European Union and Ministry for Education and Research here in Germany. And it's about developing master programs for energy efficiency in Southern Africa, currently Namibia and Universities of Technology in South Africa, where we just signed an MOU with Cape Peninsula University of Technology, where the SARETEC, South African Renewable Energy Institute, is established. Well, the education on this level is, I think, a piece, a small stone to make it affordable to bring also new technologies to Africa without always getting expert from abroad to the continent, which makes it really more affordable, even to go with products which needs a little bit more maintenance or specialized maintenance on the continent. And so the capacity building, even these programs are one stone in getting education and also backing entrepreneurs by being able to get resources, human capacity, just at the place they're doing the business.
Okay. We are running out a bit of time, so I want to give the chance to you now to raise some questions, because I might not ask the questions you wanted to know. So maybe we start with this gentleman. Where are the mics? There.
Thank you very much. My name is Fred, and I come from Uganda. My question first is to Ethan. At the start of your presentation, you mentioned something like sustainability being inherently affordable. I don't know whether that narrative is targeted to the African market or it's targeted to another market other than Africa. The reason why I'm asking you this is because in Africa we have a very floating, if you were to grade the income scales across the demographics, it's pretty floating. What's affordable today is sustainably not going to be affordable tomorrow. And I think that's the biggest problem that our governments are struggling with, being able to lift up population to a level where they can sustain their income and lifestyle. What do you inherently mean by that? The second part is the dialogue you were having with Sulaiman in regards to provision of electricity. I don't know if Lumos is also pouring up capital manufacturing plants, because that's our biggest problem in Africa. The cost of goods coming out of our manufacturing plant are pretty expensive, that the overheads of importing products from outside still makes imports more attractive to our traders than the local manufacturing plants that we have in-house. So the key that probably it's a homework and takeaway that Luminos might want to go with, how are you focused on driving our capital manufacturing plants? Because that's really where we need the energy. The cost per kilowatt is just taking many initiatives, startups that are in the manufacturing sector the mortality rate is pretty high.
Sure. So just quickly, on the first point on sustainability being inherently more affordable, my only point is that sustainability from the environmental perspective, you know, if you're saying you're going to use fewer resources, over time, it should cost less money because you're using more resources. So the example of solar, it's free once it's installed. The issue is the upfront cost. So that was my point there. In terms of the second, right now we don't manufacture on the continent. We manufacture in China. It's something that we're looking at and we'd like to do. But I will say that in terms of economic development, a quarter of our customers are SMEs. So 3/4 are homes, but the rest are non-residential and they're businesses. You know, businesses that can be open later, that can go into new lines of businesses. You know, health clinics have multiple systems that we are powering. And so, you know, fundamentally, energy access does lead to economic development in and of itself. And I fully agree that we'd like to be manufacturing. We don't have to deal with customs and all of that. That's not fun. So we'd like to. We're just not there yet.
Thank you. There's another question.
Hi. The way you said the debate is very interesting because it focuses on sustainability at the end. But to come back on energy, and I will have another question afterwards, it seems to me there is something missing, which is participation of the population. And Mr. Nyang, you know that very well. For example, in Senegal, Schneider has been conducted some experiments, you know, with rural population, because to be in the grid when you are really far away, it's very difficult. So the only alternative way of electrifying villages is solar energy. But people have to learn how to take care of this. They have to learn how, you know, to install or replace solar, because it's not at once. You have to keep this sustainable. So participation, it seems to me, and I would like to have the reaction of Mr. Nyang, it seems to be very important. And just, if you allow me, another question to Natalie. It's wonderful, this data mattering, and I'm looking forward to reading them. But why only these 3 countries, which are English-speaking countries? I'm very sorry to insist. Why not Senegal? Why not Ivory Coast? Please don't forget French-speaking Africa. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh.
Suleiman, you can
okay.
start.
Then thank you very much. The point is really right, because if you look at the configuration of the villages in Africa, you have a lot of villages far from the normal grid. So, and it costs 50,000 euro to have 1 kilometer of line extension. So it is not viable for a local utility to put the line to the village. So the only chance this village have is to have a son in the government. Yeah, but it's not a viable solution. So the solution is to have really, therefore, so I have a decentralized system in the village. And if you look at the configuration of an African village of 800 people, it's not all the 800 people on one spot. So you have also a distribution of the people in the village, different concession. If you have 800 people, you might have 40 concessions. So it is a question how to create a mini grid in the village. So, and the point is right, and how to configure a village, this mini grid. So the production of the electricity and the distribution within the village, and how to organize the payment. So what we do is to train local people and to cooperate with local university, and we create some what we called hosted solar academies. For example, with the Strathmore University in Kenya, with the University of Dhaka, and to train local people to size and configure and to install and to service the system, because it is key. The service, you have a lot of symmetry of systems in Africa. So, and therefore, that is the last point here. That is how to create a remote service, how to use the internet to monitor and to service the system remotely. And if you can do it here in Berlin, and then you can send a call to a local partner to go to the village and to service the system. So training, using the new technology in cooperation with local universities, that is something we try to do.
Thank you. Natalie?
Merci pour le commentaire. Thank you for the comment. Of course, we would love to go to also French-speaking Africa. The thing is we have to start somewhere. We have to also develop, learn from what we do, and go forward. We really hope we can reach more countries in the future. Merci.
There was another question here, please, in front.
Can I add something about the mentoring? We had our startup camps last week, West African and Europe camp, and this week, East Africa and Europe. And we have some of our entrepreneurs in the room. So if you want to meet them, maybe raise your hand if you're an Impact Fellow. I think we had 2 from West Africa and about 15 from East Africa. So you can connect with them and share ideas, perspectives. And
thank you. The question, please.
Yes, the last question probably. Yeah, it's going to be the last question. I'm a sustainability scientist myself, and I'm trying to think all these things all the way to the end. I've been working in a kind of similar business environment, business model as Lumos did with crowd investment for solar projects. But what we tend to forget is that when we install all these systems, we are going to have waste. We're going to have a lot of waste. And I would like to hear maybe from your side, what inventions are there already? What innovations are in the market? I don't know too much about it myself, so I would like to hear about that.
Anybody likes to? Ethan? Yeah?
You're completely right. If you look at Africa, what's going on, then you have a lot of cheap systems from the Chinese, yeah, that would last maybe 2-3 years. It's not our business. Therefore, there is a different approach, a different philosophy. What we do is to put in place bigger systems. Bigger systems means systems from 5 kilowatt to megawatt. So it's not, we are not in smaller systems. We are in bigger systems that have to be maintained, has to be repaired, and of course have to be recycled afterwards. Yeah, but your point is really right. If you look at the smaller dispersed systems around Africa, exactly. Yeah.
Ethan, you want to add something?
I mean, just that, you know, our solar panels will last for at least 20 years, and our batteries somewhere between 8 to 10 years. Certainly, there's recycling of batteries. I mean, and there are recycling of old panels as they become, not ours, obviously, we're just a couple years, but that exists in the world. But I think also you have to compare it to what exists now. And if you compare it to the grid as it is, it's certainly a much more sustainable way. And so while I agree that recycling is important, I think A, the systems will get built to last even longer. And then 2, that, you know, compared to what exists and how other options to electrify, it's certainly more sustainable.
Is there a last urgent question? Very urgent, okay. Very short, please, and very short answer, please. Yes.
Okay, I'm Richmond from Ghana. I was part of the West Africa camp, so I decided to extend my stay here.
Very good.
So the first one about sustainability, I think for me, the Impact program is quite great because it's an 8-month-long program. So we were here last week. From last week till February next year, we are supposed to be in touch with our mentors. So that should tell you that it's quite sustainable somehow for us, because to get somebody, an expert, to be going through timelines with you every month or week on week, for me, I think after the 8 months, it should have an impact on the startup that we are having. For instance, my company, for instance, Cassie Express, with about 40 employees, I think for the last 1 week that I spent at Impact, I came here to look for funding, but I think I've gotten more than the funding that I needed. So it's better that I go back.
I suppose this is not a question, is
well,
it? Especially not a short one.
Yes. Now my question to Ethan, that was just a comment on Natalie. It's that I do not agree that everybody in Africa can afford electricity. Not everybody earns 50 cents in Africa. And I can tell you my country in Ghana just recovered from a serious power issue. And when you go to rural Africa, nobody can afford 50 cents a day. So, and even with the startup, with your project, it's expensive signing up on a solar project in Ghana. Not even the average Ghanaian can afford that.
I think we got the point.
I don't know how
you
so
want
to finance that for the rural Africans.
We won't find the answer today, I'm sure about that. And we have to stop now, but I want to give one or two of you the opportunity to give a conclusion. Can we be innovative, sustainable, and affordable all at once? Does anybody dare to answer this question? Not really.
Well, I can. I'm sure it is possible to follow all the goals, but
not yet.
Maybe not at the same speed at the same time. But we are now in an environment where we can think more about that we have more than one goal. And for me, it's possible, but well, be innovative, create new ideas.
I think the G20 and Marshall Plan, Compact with Africa, all that is a big chance. Africa is on the agenda now, especially in Germany. It wasn't before. And this is a great opportunity, and we should take it. And we should keep on trying to do everything that Africa is developing. And I thank everybody on the panel. I thank you, the audience. Thank you so much.